Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Jake Vassello, and this is my final project for the class Theories of Personality. Now for this final project, I decided to look into my own personality and how it became that way. For a personality assessment, I decided to use the Big Five, and there were two reasons for this. The first reason is that the Big Five is consistent through different cultures, different languages. This is important because while looking into personality, I needed something that would work for everybody, not just give accurate results for somebody that lives in the United States. The second reason that I picked the Big Five is because it allows for accurate self-rating. Now, I couldn't go around asking a bunch of people to rate my personality, especially people that wouldn't really understand the Big Five, so I decided to go with something that was just accurate for me to rate myself. To do this, I took a test that gave Big Five results, and these are the results. Now, it's important to note that these are percentiles. So, for example, my extroversion's at 41. That means I would be about more extroverted than about 41% of the people out there. Neuroticism is at an 87. Agreeableness is a 45. Conscientiousness is a 67. And openness to experience is an 88. Now, while looking into personality, there are two main theories about how it's developed. The first is nature. This is basically the genetics a person have, and it is important to note that about 50% of a person's personality is due to their genetics. People are like their parents, their grandparents, things like that. However, due to limitations on the length of the presentation in the paper, I really did decide to focus more on nurture, or the situations that affect a person's personality. The first part about the nurture is looking into just household experience of the person. My parents divorced when I was 2 years old, and this is important for two reasons. As research shows, a child with divorced parents is much more likely to have lower levels of extroversion. As you saw before, my extroversion was at a 41, which is lower than half the people out there. The second thing that affected my upbringing by my parents being divorced is I was actually raised by two parental strategies. My mother was very strict and cold. She was kind of out there and just told me to do my chores and left me alone. And this results in lower levels of extroversion. On the other hand, my father was much more warm and guiding. Everything I did, he was there for, looking over my shoulder. And this results in higher levels of conscientiousness and higher levels of openness to experience. Now, if you look back to the third slide, extroversion is fairly low, conscientiousness and open experience are both fairly high, which accurately reflects the research here. And I know I said there were two, but the third reason that having divorced parents was affecting my personality and how it was developed is how well a person accepts life adjustments is important. Between my parents being divorced and me relocating across the country, I went through two very large life adjustments, and studies show that poor parenting can result in extremely high and low levels of Big Five traits. Now, if you look back at mine, there are a couple. Neuroticism, openness to experience are fairly high, but nothing's too extreme. And I do think that is because of this study done by Van de Ecker. Nothing's too high, nothing's too low, because I had two good parents that really helped me direct and adjust well to life experiences. The third, or going beyond just looking at my parents, how I grew up and my socioeconomical status was important. It's shown that somebody growing up in the lower class, especially a male, will have lower levels of neuroticism. I was fortunate enough to actually grow up in the upper middle class, and I do think that accurately reflects how I do have higher levels of neuroticism. A very large one, and this is a lot of study done by Harris, is friendships and how friendships growing up affect a person's personality. Now, Harris went through a few different of the Big Five traits that I would like to run through. The first is that extroverts have more acquaintances than introverts, and the reasoning for this is that when an extrovert goes up to someone and approaches someone as a stranger, the extrovert typically assumes that person already likes them. And obviously, if you assume someone likes you, you're going to have more acquaintances. Now, I do have a fairly low level of acquaintances and high level or average level of just very good friends. And that actually displays my high levels of neuroticism. Thirdly, a person that is more agreeable will be, and more open to experience, will have a more solution-oriented goal when they have arguments with friends, and that relates well with me. My levels of agreeableness and openness to experience are pretty high, and every time I do argue with a friend or family member, I look for the solution for it. I don't do it to win, I just do it to resolve whatever's going on. And finally, a more conscientious person will have more reliable friendships, and most of the friends I've had since I was 5 or 6 years old, and I do think that accurately reflects my levels of conscientiousness, which were fairly high. And I think finally, although religion wasn't ever a huge thing in my life, it is important to note that people with high levels of neuroticism are much more likely to have a chance of changing religion from what they were born with. And this is typically because, someone's parents told them that they're this religion growing up, and a person with higher levels of neuroticism can question that, look into it a little more, and decide what's right for them. And I was born Catholic, and I actually am now atheist, so I do think that reflects my personality well. Now, overall, while you look over the references, this is just the conclusion to my presentation. My personality, you can see the traits over here. I have average levels of extroversion and agreeableness, fairly low actually, and then neuroticism, conscientiousness, and openness to experience are fairly high. And if you do look through the research presentation, if you look through these 2 pages of references I have, I do think that you'll notice my assessment is very accurate of my personality due to the facts presented. Alright, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoy your day. And if I went through the references too fast, it's 2 pages, just feel free to pause and look through them.